DBSCG things.
What's up, Yuhp gang? It's your boy Taxon, and welcome back to Yuhp DBSCG Things, and today we're going over another very exciting deck profile, guys. This is going to be the deck that won first place at our last locals. This is Cumber. But before we get into it, guys, I do want to say if you guys want any custom mats and or sleeves, absolutely check out Promats, guys. This is the best place to go get your custom card needs, and if you guys do decide to get a mat from them, make sure you guys use the promo code Yuhp to save on your entire order. With that being said, if you guys enjoyed this list or my content in general, remember to hit all those buttons for me, like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video. And with that being said, let's turn it around and check it out. Alrighty, you guys, here's the deck. Now let's go ahead and go over it, starting off with the leader in the field spell, because the leader starts off by placing this field spell in play when you play this card into your leader area. And then, of course, auto, when this card attacks, you will draw a card, and then you have an awakening ability at 4 or less. You can draw one and untap one, or if you have a Fu Z battle card with an energy cost of 1 in play, you can untap one, draw one, go down to 6, go to your backside. On the backside, you get the auto once per turn to draw a card when you attack, and then of course you have the activate main to choose up to one of the cards that you own in your opponent's battle area and give it serve until the end of your opponent's next turn. The reason that's good is because you'll be giving your opponent's cards to search and things like that, and then you'll get draws off it as well. To go over the field really quickly, it's a barrier field, thank God it has barrier. Permanent mono black saiyan cards with a combo cost of 1 and 5,000 power in your hand and battle area have their combo cost reduced by 1. So the cards that we're giving to our opponent, they get punished if they want to combo with them, whereas we do not. And then of course we have this other permanent. When using your Fu's Overlord to choose a servant, you are also allowed to choose cards in your opponent's battle area. So that is important because a lot of our cards will be giving our opponent's battle card servant, and then we'll be able to bottom deck those cards as well. So with that being said, field card, very important for the deck. Now we'll go over the Z deck really quickly because it is what's going to be awakening you on turn 2. We have 2 of the Fu, 2 of the Cumber. So, I mean, the deck's kind of old now, so most people should know what the deck does. This guy comes out for 1 and 1 Z energy, and then of course he Z stacks this guy out from underneath him, and then of course you have the activate main that you can use at any point of the game whenever you feel it, like you want to. Pay 1 and play this guy out from underneath him. The turn that you play this guy, if he doesn't get like his auto stopped, he'll give something servant on play and then something servant on swing. So if you have this guy out and the promo out, of course you can drop this guy and then give 2 of your opponent's battle cards servant, and then use his skill in the promo in order to get draws off of their cards instead of cards that you're giving them. So very good card, not really much of an attacker, but just being able to give 2 things servant, very, very strong. And then of course Fu, just doing its overlord thing. So moving on to the next Z card, we have 2 Majin Buu Pure Destroyer. This guy essentially is just a 1-cost blocker, but he also has some very good spot removal, and it becomes a 25,000 attacker. So a 1 energy 25k beater is always very, very good, especially just having random spot removal, very strong. And then our last card in the Z deck is SS Cumber Battle Frenzy. I was thinking about making room for 1 copy of Surmounting the Impossible for Vegeta, but unfortunately I feel like this deck just doesn't need to get to the Z leader, so it's not necessary to self-awaken yourself in a point to get there, because he does cost 1, so if you're not at 3 of the turn you want to go to your Z leader, it would cost you 2. Because you're going to have to go 1 for the Z card to take you down 1, and then of course 1 for the Cumber as well. So anyways, in case you guys do not know, he is a Z Awaken for 2 Z and 1 black energy if your life's at 3 or less over a black Cumber. When this card attacks, you can draw 1 card and then give 1 of your opponent's battle cards servant until the end of your opponent's next turn, and then of course you have the activate battle once per turn if this card is in battle, so this can happen on both players' turns, like if this card is attacked or if it's attacking. You can choose up to 2 of your opponent's battle cards from your opponent's side of the field with servant and use them in a combo. So very, very powerful, especially if you choose like a boss monster in play. If it doesn't have barrier and you choose and give it servant, you can combo that for free, giving you like a 1 plus 10k. So that is the Z deck. We'll go ahead and move this out of the way and then dive into a little bit of the deck. Starting off with my Negate package, I chose to run 2 Support of the Dark Empire. Everyone knows what this card does. It's testing the opposition and homicidal clones, whatnot, just like that. Negate the attack if you're at 5 or less. You can take a life instead, and then when you negate the attack with this, you play a blocker token. And then of course we have 2, well not of course, this is actually a tech that I choose to run. Ultimate minus energy Powerball. This is essentially like adding Wolf Fang Fist into your black deck, which just feels really good. and I'll explain why this card's a little bit more value when we get to a couple cards away. But essentially, it's just activated at counterattack timing. You get to you don't have to choose the attacking card, but you have to choose any card from your opponent's side of the board, ignoring barrier with 15,000 power or less, and warp it. So a reason I like this was, of course, in the Gamma matchup, where they think they're just going to stick a barrier card and then make it so that I don't have to make it so that I can't use their cards to overlord and whatnot like that. I could just use this when they attack with it and get rid of it and force them into using different bodies. So very, very good card. I like the card a lot. It actually comes in handy a lot. It also has this activate main/battle. I get to choose one of my black leaders or battle cards, and it gets plus 15,000 power until the end of my opponent's next turn, or whichever comes first. So at the end of the battle, or whichever comes first. Yeah. So very good. Just a 1 energy plus 15k. It's like having UI Goku Kamehameha in the deck as well. It's a pretty solid card. Almost never use it for that, but the negate is very good. Anyways, next up we have Petrification. Choosing only to run 1 copy of this right now just because deck space is super, super tight, and this is like my first iteration of Cumber that I've tested with. So of course, negate the attack, you get to pitch 1 card from your hand, and then you get to choose any card on your opponent's side of the board, ignoring barrier. That card cannot attack, be comboed with, or be removed from the battle area, or I apologize, or activate its skills until the end of the turn. So very good when you are trying to stop. If your opponent missequences and like has a boss monster on field, and you don't want it to attack, maybe they swing leader first. Of course, you can negate with Petrification and then stop their boss monster from swinging. Or, of course, if you just have like a big, nasty activate main, activate battle, and or like an on-attack auto, this stops those as well because it will make it so they can't activate it. So very good. We're running 1 copy of an unexpected turn. I would run this at like 2, but unfortunately I find it's extremely hard for myself to set this card up unless I'm versing a deck that naturally plays a couple bodies itself. So I decided just to run it at 1. When it comes up and it's very good, but when it doesn't, it's just it's okay. Because if I end up having like a bunch of my 1-drop stuff on field, like not my barrier one, but my 1-drop stuff, of course I'll get rid of those as well. So because it does say choose all cards, it doesn't like when you get rid of the 2 costs or less, it's choosing all cards, not just your opponents. So next up we have 2 Super Kamehameha, diving a little bit into the counterplays, along with Unexpected Turn. This one is free. If you're at 4 or less life, you can use it by taking a life, which is super, super good. What this guy does is he stops a 4 cost or less battle card coming into play, which is a lot of the meta right now. Like I would say this is really good against Floodgates, but like along with that, it's also just a really good against a lot of the good cards in today's meta. Like, if you're versing Yellow Majin Vegeta and you're at 4 or less life, this card's active to stop just about all of their boss monsters besides, like, the 8-drop Goku. So, very, very good card. Stopping 4 cost or less for free and or for just 1 energy is very good. Next up, we have our 1 Crack in Space-Time. Another card I wish I could fit 2 of. Unfortunately, like I said, deck space is just a thing. This guy's very, very strong. 1 energy, 15k boost to your leader, and it gains double strike. So of course, if we're on our Z leader, we become a 35,000 double strike, and then of course, if we're just awoken, we're at 30 double strike, which alone is very, very hard for a lot of decks to overcome. So I do like the card a lot. Like I said, it's like having Champa double in the deck, except for you're restricted to only using it on your leader. So it kind of forces your opponent to negate like all your leader swings and force those negates on like less pivotal attacks. Like you swing with your leader, they're going to negate it because they're scared of cracking space time, but that opens you up to plays like the 8-drop and whatnot. So definitely pretty good. Next card that we're running in the deck is 2 copies of Oceanus the Floodgate. Counterattack for 2, you must choose the card in your hand and discard it, regardless if this card gets countered or not. It's part of the counter cost. Anyways, when this card is played, it's negate the attack, then play this card, then for the duration of the turn, if your opponent decides to attack, they must place 4 cards from the top of their deck into their drop area. This is a card that I am considering cutting for other cards like another Crack in Space-Time and another Petrification. Card is great, don't get me wrong, but it really does hurt because like a lot of the times I want to save this for a more detrimental turn, and then by the time I want to use it, my opponent has drawn the out to it. So things like Tyrannical Blow, Desperate Measures, and things like that kind of absolutely annihilate this card. So definitely considering cutting it, but having a Floodgate within the deck is still a good option, I think. So moving next into our super combos, just to get them out of the way, we're running 4 of the SS Vegeta Prince Strikes Back. Of course, everyone knows what this card is. 4 life or less, bottom deck 1 card from your hand and then draw 2. Plus 10k combo power. And then, of course, we are running the Unison. This is my personal choice. I know a lot of people nowadays are not running the Unison, but for me, I personally think the Unison is very good because not only is it netting my opponent, netting attacks from my opponent directed to it, and or netting a smoke dragon feels really good to me just because I just saved myself like damage in a sense. So a pretty solid card. A big reason I like this card a lot is because this makes our 1-drops in the deck very powerful. So our +2 here. Oh, by the way, we can play this for 1 energy if we have our Z card in play. So you'll come out for 1 marker, you'll +2, and then you get to choose a Evil Saiyan or a Cumber card with energy cost of 6 or less in your battle area, and then it gains Servant till the end of your opponent's next turn. Reason this is very good is because, of course, we can choose things like our Z card and then a few other battle cards that we'll get to next. 10,000 power on just about any one of your 1-drops is very, very powerful. And then the -7, almost we don't need to talk about. Costs 1 black energy. You get to choose one of your opponent's battle cards with Servant, switch it to active mode, and gain control of it. Unfortunately, like I said, this card is like a health cushion. If your opponent doesn't smoke dragon this, they're definitely going to swing at it a couple times, which is going to definitely net you a couple life in the long run because this you really don't care about. It goes to 3 on like the turn you play it. So if they waste 3 attacks on it, that's fine because that's 3 attacks you didn't have to deal with on your leader. Another great thing about this is, like I said on this, he boosts things like this. So I was versing round 2. I'll give a little snippet before we get to the matchups at the end. But I was versing the new Goku Black Ultimate deck, and he got Tragedy Overground out on me very, very quickly. I believe it was like turn 3 or something. But having this card, a 1 cost that becomes a 15k while also replacing itself, very, very strong. So definitely utilizing that, very strong, and along with utilizing our Z deck in order to overcome a Tragedy Overground is definitely a thing. But anyways, if you guys don't know what this card does, he does come out for 1 energy, just 1 energy cost. Most of the time he's going to be your turn 1 play so that you can combo him and get to your Z card. Anyways, when he's played, if your leader is a Evil Saiyan or a Cumber card, you get to look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You get to add yourself a 6 cost or less Fu or Saiyan, and then also search out this very specific unison. Not like a 2 cost or less unison, but this very specific unison. So there's a reason that I'm running it at 3. It's easy for me to see because my turn 1 normally is looking for it if I didn't open it. So definitely a very, very good card. And then like I said, along with this card just becoming a 15 for like no reason is pretty strong. Our next 1-drop that we're running is True Fighting Spirit Son Goku. He's not what I would call a turn 1 play. You definitely want to hold him till later unless you're really looking to self-awaken early. The guy is pretty good. Most of the time I just stick him on turns that I'm going to start swinging a lot and then force my opponent to net down value in their hand while trying to stop my onslaught. So definitely a good card, and then also he serves as a piece for our Xeno fusions later. Next card up, we have Trunks Prisoner from the Future. Very, very strong card. This guy essentially is looking at the top 5 of your deck off an activate main and then playing himself into your opponent's battle area. Within this top 5, you are looking for a Black Saiyan with energy cost of 6 or less, or a My card. And then when this is played to your opponent's battle area, your opponent has to draw a card and then discard a card. This is like actually a pretty solid skill until your opponent like discards something like a Draw Monkey or like a Ribrian or like a Koitsukai or something that like gets value from being in the draft. Like that's when you start like being like, ooh, that kind of hurt. But that's alright. Trunks is still very good because you're going to play him out, get a search, replace him off that, give him Servant with your leader, and then activate your Fu's Overlord to bottom deck and draw him. So essentially this card for like no reason just gives you a search and a draw. So very, very strong card. Next up we have 2 copies of Vegeta Against All Odds. This guy is just a free negate, but when you negate with him, he does play to your opponent's battle area and become a blocker. So if you do not Overlord and Servant him right away going into your following turn, they will more than likely block with him off the rip so that they don't have to deal with 1 attack. Our next card to round up these 3 drops from the archetype is Son Goku going Berserk, or Berserker Instincts, or whatever it is. Essentially, this guy is a 1 cost 10k, or a 3 cost 10k double strike, but for you, if you play him from 1 off his activate main, in your battle area, he does become a 25k double strike because he gains 5k in Servant. And of course, you have this super, super nifty effect that when you combo with this card, you get to choose one of your cards, give it 10,000, and then play this card to your opponent's battle area. You do have to be kind of weary when you're versing certain decks with this, because if you're versing a deck with a black leader, and you combo this into their field, thinking that maybe you just survived their last attack, you just gave them a 25k double strike. So you definitely want to look out for that. Only really utilize him in matchups where it's worth it, and then otherwise he is just a one-drop 25k double striker, which is just going to net you a lot of value and pressure off of that. So moving into some of the more cumber stuff, we have 6-drop cumber, Furious Frenzy. This guy comes out for 1 energy, of course, off his activate main. Of course, there's a little bit of requirements to it. Your opponent does have to have 2 or more energy and a battle card in play in order to play this card, which is actually super simple to do, because if your opponent is not playing battle cards to try to like play around your deck's playstyle, of course you can activate Mana Trunks, play into your opponent's battle area, get yourself a search, make them draw and discard. You can play him off it, and then you can use your leader effect to give him Servant and then bottom deck him. So very easy to set this guy up, so it's not really too hard to set up, but of course being a 19k dual attack is very powerful, and then giving something Servant to the end of your opponent's turn is also extremely strong when it comes to not only bottom decking, drawing them off your own Overlord skills, but either locking them down for a turn in order to keep them in rest mode so you don't have to deal with an attack from them is very, very strong going into the following turn. So just being very, very good, also tied up with this Unison is just extremely strong, especially if you're on the play, like going second. You can get this guy. Well, you would have to start off with your Fu, go into your Unison, and then go into him all in one turn if your opponent has a battle card in play. Or if you just have Trunks, you can do all that in one turn and make him a 29k dual attack on your turn 2, which is very strong. Moving into our next cumber card, we have our 8 cost. This is a card that I've been considering going down to 2 of. This card, unfortunately, I feel like I just never play him. I end up like closing out my games with other options within the deck. But this card is very, very good, and just being that he doesn't have barriers, kind of what like makes him susceptible to a lot of things within the meta. So that's why I would consider cutting him down to 2. Anyways, when you play this guy for his 2 energy, if you have 4 or more energy and your opponent has 2 or more battle cards in play, you get to play this guy from your hand. Auto, if your leader is a black saiyan card, when this card is played, you get to draw 1 card, and then you get to choose any number of your opponent's battle cards and give them Servant until the end of your opponent's next turn. So this card is very, very good, not only to lock things down, but definitely to set up things like your Z leader to give you a bunch of combo power. Because now, if you play him before swinging with your leader or Z leader, you swing with your Z leader afterwards, and then you get to get your auto. You give something else Servant, and then of course you can combo with 2 of the cards that you gave Servant with this. So definitely a very, very strong combo as well. And then of course all those cards will have Servant until the end of your opponent's next turn. So when your opponent decides to swing with their leader at your leader, of course, you can use the Activate Battle to combo off their cards from battle area. And then besides that, giving everything Servant skill, he also has another skill where you get to choose one. You can either gain dual attack and double strike or triple strike for the turn. Unfortunately, just giving this card triple strike is not great, because it just gets like, all it really costs is like 1 negate from your opponent to stop that. So not great going for triple strike, but dual attack, double strike is a phenomenal combination of skills. So definitely going to use that one more often. Next up, we have 3 copies of our Fu Observing Overlord. This guy comes out for 1 energy if your leader is a cumber and your opponent has 2 or more energy and 2 or more battle cards in play. You can play this card from your hand by drawing a card. Drawing a card is part of the cost, so definitely remember that. You draw a card, play him, and then of course he is yet another way. Essentially, he's your Z card on a battle card. So he's going to come out. He doesn't give nothing Servant, but things like your leader, things like this card, things like this Z card. You'll have ways to give other cards Servant, and then you'll bottom deck and Z charge them. Or not Z charge, I apologize. You'll bottom deck and draw a card off them. So very, very good card. More than likely going to draw 2 cards off with that card the turn you play him. So very, very solid. Next up, we're going into the thwarting package. Everyone knows we're running thwarting because of our super combo and the Goku there. We are running Gogeta Fearless Fusion. Another card that I don't use too much. I could be playing the deck wrong, but it's probably just because I don't run a bunch of overwhelms and get my fusions to the warp area. But as of right now, I don't really use this card that much, but when he does come up, I'm sure that he will be useful. Having barrier removal is just extremely good, especially in a deck that lacks absolutely any of it. So definitely wanted to keep that within the deck so that I can use it when I need it. We have 1 copy of Thwarting. In case you guys don't know what he does, which you probably should by now. He just fuses for 1 energy. He's a 25k double striker, and then when he attacks, he gets to choose a battle card from your opponent's side of the field and warp it. So definitely a very, very strong card. Moving on to some of the last few tech pieces that I chose to run within the deck. I got 2 copies of Son Gohan, Hostile Saiyan Encounter. This guy essentially has 2 sets of skills that make him pretty useful for the deck. You have 1, when you Z-charge him, you can pay 1 black energy and then choose one of your opponent's battle cards with energy cost of 4 or less and send it to the warp. Very, very strong skill. Like I said earlier in the video, there's a lot of 4-cost battle cards within the meta right now, especially within yellow. Yellow is utilizing a lot of 4-cost cards like the Maj and Vegeta, like the Goku and Vegeta duo. There's just so many 4-drops right now with them, so I just feel like that skill alone is very good. And then of course, when he is in your drop area or warp area, you can go ahead and play him from your warp by, I believe, taking a life and then bottom decking a card from your hand to negate an attack. So if your leader is black or a master teaching card and your life is at 4 or less, and you add 1 card from your life to your hand and then place 1 card from your hand at the bottom of the deck, when your opponent attacks with a battle card, you may place this card from play this card from the drop or the warp and then negate the attack. So very, very strong card, like I said, but it only stops battle cards, so you definitely got to make sure that you're timing that out correctly, because if you think that you're going to save this card for the last attack and the last attack ends up being a Unison or a leader swing, you definitely won't be able to use it. So definitely keep that in mind, but otherwise the card is very, very good. Next up, a card that I find shockingly very, very strong in this deck. Black Max Saiyan Assault from the Darkness. Of course, this guy is just a deflect 6-cost 25k. He does have a permanent on him that you cannot attack with this card unless you have 3 or more energy, and then you also must have a Z leader or a Z battle card in play, which just so happens that we have a turn 2 barrier deflect Z card. So most of the time you'll be able to use this card, and then of course you have the activate battle, limit 1 for 1 black. If your leader is black, you may play this card from your hand, and then you have the autos when this card is played. If it is your turn, you may choose one of your opponent's battle cards and then send with energy cost of 6 or less and send it to the warp. And then if it's your opponent's turn, this card acts as a bean by giving your leader 5k for the duration of the turn. So paying 1 for 5k for the duration of the turn, especially if you're on your Z leader, being a 25k for the turn is very, very strong. And then also having the added effect of actually being able to attack with this card makes it very, very powerful. So I definitely like the deck. It is a 0 for 0 combo cost, so being that he's a bean definitely covers that. Other than that, I definitely like the card. I do not think I'd cut it. Next up of our last 3 cards, they are all 1-ofs. We have Max Saiyan Brainwash No More. Everyone should know what this card does. Essentially, he is a activate battle for 1 black. If your leader is black, you may crit 1 life and discard this card from your hand, and you don't take damage for the duration of the battle. So if your opponent is swinging with a big double strike, triple strike, quad strike, victory strike, anything like that, you just activate battle for 1 black energy, you discard this card from your hand, crit yourself 1 life, and then the battle just fizzles. Very, very good. Very, very good card. And then outside of that, he also serves as a 30k beat stick overwhelm. When he overwhelms out, he does get to choose 3 cards within your drop or warp area and then send them back to the drop area. So a little bit of recycling if you have anything that in the deck that you want to do that with. Unfortunately, not much in this deck that actually matters if it's in your drop area or not. But definitely something you can do there if you have another overwhelm that you're setting up to do the following turn. Definitely a very good card. I've closed out. I actually think I've won my locals with this card by saving him for my last attack, first thing AOD. Next up we have Dark Broly Heartless Berserker. Just a straight up phenomenal card. Not much you can say about this. When he overwhelms out, you just get rid of absolutely anything in the field, and then he swings for 30k, and then if for some reason you need to use him again, he will be in the warp, and you will be able to use his 2 energy activate main effect to play him from the warp. So definitely a good choice there, having him as a backup overwhelm. And then our final card in the deck is our secret rare, Evil Saiyan Malice Made what does that say? Flesh? Malice Made Flesh. Anyways, of course this card is a big wall of text, but essentially you want to play this card out before your opponent gets to 1 life, and then if you do so, you must be at turn 4 by the way, you pay 2 to play him, and then in the skill that's playing him, you warp something ignoring barrier, and then play this card, and then you get the auto. If your opponent is at 2 or more life, you may look at their life, choose a card within their life with a, I believe like a 7 cost or less restriction, warp it, and then when you do so, you get to go through your opponent's warp and then play a battle card from their warp into your battle area. So he not only is a 40k attacker, he is going to warp something on play, warp a life on play, and play another card from your opponent's battle area. Or not battle area, warp area. So, he nets himself as 2 attacks, a burn damage, and a removal. So, and then he also has this other very, very strong effect that is very nasty against Floodgates. When your opponent plays a battle card with an energy cost of 7 or less, you may choose one of your cards and send it to the warp. If you do so, you gain control of the played card. So essentially, if it's your turn, and you play this card and your opponent tries to play something like an Floodgate or something, you can warp one of your own battle cards, and then take that card. And then because it is your turn, and it's a turn-based game, you will get that turn. You'll get the on-play auto of that card because your autos go first. So their Floodgate will not go into effect. So very, very strong. And then of course, going into the following turn, it's a skill that your opponent's going to have to play around in order to proceed with their turn. So with that being said, guys, this was the deck profile. I'll go over my matchups really quickly. Round 1, I do not remember clearly, but I won. Round 2, I remember very clearly because it was a very stressful and hard-fought game. It was versing the Goku Black Ultimate deck, but it played into the Tragedy Overground theme very, very quickly. And I believe by turn 3, I was locked under the Tragedy field. So essentially, this half of my deck was dead. All of this stuff was just dead because I was versing a control deck, so all my negates and counterplays really didn't matter too much. I really had to win the game, and I did end up winning the game, but I really won the game because I played the Unison. This is a 15k attack every single turn. He becomes a 15k attack every single turn. He becomes a 15k attack when I self-awaken with him. And then of course we have things like this that becomes an attacker. And I believe in that game, I just played out Boo. And like that was my final attack. Like I hope this is going to be enough to kill him for his one last life, and then I just ended up catching it with Boo. So with that being said, that was Goku Black's matchup, and then AOD is going to be up on the channel. Probably already have seen it by now. But yeah, basically, we got to turn 4. I slapped this down and then wiped their Bobbity, and then proceeded to start swinging in. And the deck really relies on their Garlic Juniors being 1 energy. So when I slapped this down and got rid of their Bobbity on my go-in turn, it was really hurtful because now they had to pay 2 energy per negate, and they just were not prepped for that amount of pressure. So with that being said, definitely go check out that video. I'll even leave a link to that battle in the description below. With that being said, if you guys enjoyed this deck profile or my content in general, remember to hit all those buttons for me, like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you guys next time.